Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 755. I had the black pieces. My opponent started off with e5. Started off with e4 and I went e5. So we get a classical type of setup here: knight f3, knight c6, and bishop c4, the Italian game, only second in popularity to the Ruy Lopez, which is the main move there, was the main move there for many years. Although the Italian game has been coming back into popularity in recent years because of the fact that white doesn't seem to be able to make any progress in the Ruy Lopez. It seems like black has found lines to kind of neutralize that. So bishop c4 has made kind of a comeback at the top level these days. So I play bishop c5 here going into the Italian game. You could also play knight f6 going into the two knights defense. That's a pretty tricky and tactical defense. Not always preferred to be on the white side of that, honestly, but it is interesting and playable for black as well. Anyway, bishop c5, and he castles. Castles is not the main move here. b4, you see the second choice is the Evans Gambit, c3, ready to build up a quick center, and also potentially leading into the Müller attack, or just playing quietly with c3 and d3. Those are all different ways to play, and this kind of transposes into one of the d3 lines. I play knight f6, a natural developing move and attacking this undefended pawn. And white can play for a gambit here. This d4 gambit is kind of interesting, but my opponent just defended with d3. So I play d6, and then he goes rook e1. c3 is the main move here. We actually transpose back into a known position because after I castle, he plays c3 then. And then this move I play, a5, actually gets us out of the book. And then he goes d4. But a5 in this position, I looked at it with the chess engine. It seems like it's a fine move. It does give up the b5 square, so it has a weakness, and sometimes white can exploit that. But it has the advantage that it tries to control the b4 square, because many times white wants to push b4 to gain space on the king side, queen side rather, and also to push my pieces back, so gaining space with some tempo. So this kind of stops that idea, and it seems to be quite good for black. So, well, white still has some opening advantage, but black is fine here. So he pushes on with d4. It's pretty logical. I drop my bishop back to a7, and then he pushed on with d5. I was thinking he should either push or take, but both of those are actually good for black. The chess engine gives as its top choice this h3 move. It just wants to, prevent the pin. So kind of sit on the position a little bit. If I respond in kind with h6, then reposition the bishop to b5, bishop d7, and some slight edge for white still in this position, but keeping the tension in the center. That's how the chess engine wants to play this. So d5, I was kind of happy to see this move, and the engine gives a slight edge to black here. Basically, it blocks up the center and asks the question of this bishop what it really wants to do, because it's no longer doing much very useful here. I start routing my knight around. Well, it's kicked. It's got to move, and so I'm bringing it over to the king side. Played a4 here. He didn't really need that move, I don't think. I don't know if I was threatening. Maybe I was threatening to play a4 myself in some circumstances, but not right here with the bishop blocking my rook. So I think he might have had other moves, but he's probably preparing the idea of bishop to b5, which he does get in at some point. Anyway, I get my bishop developed, bishop to g4, which I thought was pretty logical, but it turns out that already, maybe because of this a4 move being slightly slow, already I have a nice position after knight to g4. I was kind of thinking of this knight g4 idea, and then I decided to develop a few more pieces first, because sometimes you don't want to go on these adventures without completing your development. But well, he's got it comes with tempo. He has to defend that. Rook f1 is the chess engine's preference, and then f5. So that's the best play for black, and it leaves black with a pretty considerable edge. Notice this move. Now if the knight gets kicked, it can drop back to f6 behind the pawn. I can start undermining his center, and if he ever takes on e5 there, then I can take back with either the knight or the bishop and get those pieces into the game. So looks like a good position for black. Anyway, had the similar idea, but I was doing it in a slower fashion. I played bishop g4 first, then knight to g6, and knight f1, and now I was trying to figure out a way to get a knight to g4 to make that similar threat. So I played queen d7 to defend my bishop, so that after I trade and queen takes back, I can play knight g4 defended by the queen. The chess engine's top choice here is actually the move knight to h4, which is, now that I've seen it, I didn't think about this at all during the game, but yeah, it makes sense to put pressure on that knight while it's pinned and maybe force him to drop the bishop back to unpin. Yeah, looks like that's interesting for black. The other way to play it, which I think is also pretty thematic, and it was like the engine's second choice, is this knight h5 move. And I really should have thought of this one because it's a very common idea, which is you want to get a piece, a knight, particularly a knight to f4 would be good in this structure. And he's got this bishop ready to trade off the knight, so you need two of them. So you get both knights pointing at that f4 square. So a very typical idea, that knight h5. And but somehow I had a little bit of a mental block here, and I fall into this pretty shortly. So let's see. He continued with knight g3. Oh, let's see. I played queen d7. As I said, he played knight g3. And then I went on with my plan. It took, and I played knight to g4, hitting that pawn and forcing him to defend. The chess engine likes defending with rook f1 even more, and it says that after rook f1 that black has nothing better than retreating this knight, and then white gets the knight on f5, this sort of corresponding position to my getting a knight to f4. And notice that I don't have a bishop to trade that off with. I've already traded my bishop for the other knight. So he gets to, it'll take me a while to unseat that knight, and this gives an edge to white. Let's see, but he went with rook e2, and I went with knight f4, and this is just an oversight. I totally was somehow not seeing that his bishop was pointing to that. Probably I was making this plan back here somewhere, like when his knight was on b2 and the bishop was blockading. The bishop was blocked by his knight, and I was somehow still imagining this square was available, and but it had been many moves had gone by since then, so I really have no excuse for playing like that. Anyway, let's see, rook e2, he went, yeah, knight f4. Can't explain it. So he takes, and so now I'm just a pawn down, and he has some opportunities to really build on his advantage, but he misses them. So, but they'll give us some tactical quiz opportunities here. So let's see, I came in with rook a to e8. He goes bishop to b5. This is all okay. This is still good. Pawn takes, pawn takes. Okay, here's your first tactical quiz. You've got the white pieces, and it's your turn to move. What's a good move for white? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now, so pause the video if you want time to think about it. But the answer is he can actually take that pawn on c6. I did not think about that at all. But, well, my queen is overloaded. My queen is busy defending the knight. So, you know, if I take the bishop, I can. He takes the knight, and he's just snagged another pawn, and so now he's 2 pawns up. So that's a pretty nifty little tactic. And, you know, I went into this thinking that I was just chasing his bishop back, and he fell for it. He just moved his bishop back there. So that was one chance he had to really increase his advantage. Here I can kind of neutralize things a bit with d5, particularly since he put the bishop on that square. Yeah, I thought about d5, but I thought it was kind of risky. d5, you know, rook d1. I didn't know exactly what I would do here. But the chess engine says I've got bishop b8, kicking the queen around. Let's see, it also, I mean, it gives a line with the queen going here and the pawn going here and the queen going here, and says that black is better. And also if the queen just retreats, and I can move my queen to the side, getting away from those rooks. And yeah, I just worried my queen would get caught in the center, but it doesn't seem to be the case. and seems like I'm okay here. He's got to do something about that pawn, and yeah, his bishop, his rook is a little bit awkwardly placed on e2. I can trade that off if that opens up, and now the queen also. Here's another point. The queen is coordinating with the knight on the f2 square, so he's got to be careful about allowing that rook trade. So this pawn is kind of pinned here. So interesting. There were more resources for black than I realized in that position that allow me to play that d5 move. Anyway, yeah, not seeing that, I dropped my knight back to f6, and now once again he could go with knight f5. He eventually hits on that idea, so I won't show this variation, but he prepares it first with rook a to e1, and then I go rook e5. I want to keep his center shut down, and now he jumps in with knight to f5. So that's a good move, and yeah, and definitely white is in the driver's seat here. I played g6, and well, this next sequence is pretty instructive. He played knight to h6 check, which is kind of what I was expecting, you know, unveiling an attack on my knight, but I can defend everything with king to g7. So there's this very nice sequence that that the chess engine finds here, which is queen to h6. So threatening mate. So I have to do something, and but if I take the knight, and he's got this check, and my king has nowhere to go but here, and then he can grab that my knight with check, and then he can start bringing his rook in. He's got a killer attack there, and he got all his material back too. So so it's not really a knight sacrifice to play that move, queen h6. Pretty nice. So that would have been another way for him to get a winning edge here. So this knight h6 lets me off the hook. Let's see, he played h3 here. I guess he's trying to prevent my knight from escaping, or maybe giving his knight a place to escape too. Maybe that's the idea there. I went knight to h5 to chase his queen away. He dropped his queen back to d2, and there is a tactic here, which is pretty funny, that I have, which equalizes. Doesn't actually win, but it equalizes, which is pretty good considering that you know, my king is a bit exposed, and I'm down a pawn. So if you want to pause the video here, see if you can find a good move for black. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away now. It's knight to g3. I really didn't think about this one at all, but of course, whenever you've got this bishop on this diagonal, you know, that pawn is pinned. It's not taking that knight. The knight can go there, and his rook has nowhere to go. It can't come up here to chase the knight away because the bishop is guarding that square. I think the line given by the chess engine is the best move for white is to bring this knight back, and after these trades, we get a position which is even. I think it says I can grab this pawn here. Yeah, but I lose this pawn. Anyway, the chess engine thinks that this knight g3 move is equalizing for me, whereas all the other moves land me in trouble, including the move I played, g5. So yeah, this is a weakening move. Yeah, I was a little bit reluctant to play it, and well, he didn't find the best way to exploit this, but he had the move knight to f5 here, which is pretty good. It's a check, and it also hits the d pawn. So after my king moves, he can snag another pawn with queen takes on d6. So anyway, lucky escape. He went knight to g4, hitting my rook. Yeah, that's pretty natural too. Played rook to c5, and he just dropped his bishop back to b3. One more trick he had up his sleeve here. I did mention during the game, this is one of those positions that's too complicated for mortal players to play. Yeah, there's a tactic he has here. He can play e5, and I don't really have time to take the bishop, because that e5 move, well, one thing it did is it blocked my bishop from defending along the 5th rank. So if I take, even if I don't take, he's got this idea here with the check and picking up my rook over here. So I'm picking up my knight, I mean. So I get a bishop, he gets a knight, and he's picked up a pawn, and he's still attacking. So also good. So luckily for me, he moved his bishop back, And I played knight f4, and let's see, he went queen to d4 check. So somewhere around here, it's things are getting back close to equal. I think that's the move that really lets me off the hook, because I can block with this f6 move. I've now defended my g5 pawn. This knight is here pretty solidly, and things are just hanging together for me. Now he needed to play something like queen d1 here and get out of this skewer, but instead or discovered attack is what he needs to get away from. Instead he played the move rook to e3, so putting more pieces in the line of the bishop. So the funny thing is that the move I played is not quite the best move. He has a defense to it. I thought it was what I played was pretty good, but he has a defense. What I should play here is h5, kicking that knight, and the knight has no squares to go to except back to h2, and then rook back to e5, and then his queen can drop back, and then I can pick up the exchange here. So that would be worth something. He would still have a pawn for the exchange, and the game would go on. So that would be interesting. So that would be an advantage to black, but that would be his best way to defend there. My best play and his best play. Let's see, I tried rook b5, which I thought was a nice double attack, but there is a defense here. So he didn't find the defense in the game, but I think you can find the defense. Knowing there's a defense here, you should be able to find it pretty easily. So take a look at it, pause the video if you need time to think about it. I'm giving the answer away now. So the defense is simply to drop the queen back. The queen defends his bishop, and my rook is still under attack, and his rook is under attack from my bishop. So I mean, it's still complicated, but in every line here, white comes out okay. Say, for example, I take the bishop, he takes my rook, so he's won the exchange, and I take his rook, and he takes back. I forget, maybe knight takes his best, I forget. But in any case, basically, we end up with even material, and he stays a pawn up. So actually, his best defense keeps him in the game and in the driver's seat. So it wasn't until he played the move a takes b5 that actually had an advantage in the game, and well, I kept it most of the way, but there was one more chance he had to play something that would equalize. But I've got the edge here because now I am picking up some material. He's grabbed a rook, but I'm going to get the queen, and then he's going to, well, he throws in this, takes the pawn here, and then he grabs my bishop. So it's a bishop and a rook for a queen, and he's still a pawn up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 versus 6. So, yep, he's a pawn up, but I have a queen for a bishop and rook, and yeah, black is better here. I mean, it's kind of a messed up position, but it's open enough that the queen is stronger than the two rooks, I think. Let's see, I went rook b8. This looks like it was an okay move. He went bishop to d5, hitting my queen, went queen b6. And this move e5 is a blunder, so he gives up a whole piece with that move. Yeah, it's funny. I guess he just didn't realize that bishop was under threat there, and it needed the defense of the knight. Also, yeah, I hadn't really realized my knight could have taken the bishop, but I could have played that here. Knight takes bishop. But after pawn takes, it does open up this this e-file for his rooks to come in. Might be some trouble for me. I do have to be a little bit careful. I mean, his remaining pieces are pretty well positioned here, the knight and the two rooks, and we'll see them. We'll see that opportunity he had a little bit later in the game. Anyway, so I let him chase my queen away when I didn't really think about the alternative of taking. And then here, really, I just noticed that the pawn was attacking these pawns, and he's trying to open up lines to get his rooks through, so I took back, but I really should have grabbed the bishop immediately. Let's see, he took, and now I noticed that I can take the bishop. So he takes here, and I played knight takes f6, and he played knight takes f6. Yeah, so that was it. Right here, instead of playing knight takes f6, I guess I should have moved my king. So what's this material balance here? The material here is that I've got a queen for a rook, and the other pieces are even. And Yeah. I'll have to be careful where I put my king, but maybe king to f8 would be a safe square. And then he's got 2 pawns and a rook for the queen, and that's just not enough material unless he's got some way to mate me immediately or get some attack going that wins material. But after knight f6, he does have a move here that I was a little bit worried about during the game. I noticed he could play rook e7 check, and well, first of all, if I go up, king g6, this loses immediately to rook to e6. There's no time to defend that knight. He's got 2 pieces attacking it, and well, you know, I could bring my queen around like this, but this would be pretty bad. Yeah, he's a pawn up here, and he can grab another pawn. So that's not a good move, king g6. King f8, and it's still even, although complicated. Let's see, what was the best move after king f8? Rook 1 to e6 doesn't work as well because of queen to c5. Yeah, and now if he takes with the rook, I can take his rook, and if he takes with the knight, then I can take the rook with the queen. Say knight takes, queen takes, and I'm the exchange up, and this pawn is falling. So this is a winning endgame for me, although I do have to be careful that I don't lose all my pawns. There's still dangers here of drawing, but not of losing. Anyway, so best is actually to play, after king f8, to play rook 7 to e6, and I grab a pawn here. And the game would continue with the chess engine rating this as even. So anyway, it would have been complicated. There's no way of telling, the way we were playing, there's no way of telling how that would have ended. But I guess, well, one thing we can say is he's probably going to win that knight. Yeah, he can take that knight right away. So it'll be a queen and a rook versus 2 rooks and a knight. And the pawns will be even. My king will be exposed. So it would be anybody's game at that point, I think. So anyway, I took, and he just took back with his knight. So that leaves me with the winning advantage. After queen takes, he tried this rook e7 trick, and I'm okay as long as I don't walk into a skewer here with king to g6 and rook to e6. But I just dropped my king back to g8, and he resigned. So anyway, pretty interesting game, I thought. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon.